4 days to go until the midterms. President Trump's closing argument loaded with claims that demand a reality check. CNN senior political analyst John Avlon here with the facts. Sir.
All right, guys. Well, as you know, to Trump, the midterm elections are all about him, which is why it's a little bit weird he isn't focusing more on his strongest suit, jobs and the economy. Instead, he's making it all about his nationalist ideology and confronting an immigrant invasion. Take this latest campaign video, which critics have called the most racist ad ever blessed by a president. It claims this cop killer was allowed in by the Democrats. In fact, there's no record of his entry at all, but he was deported the first time during the Clinton administration, and when he returned to murder 2 police officers with an AR-15, that was during the Bush administration. But it's the back half of the video that's the core of the president's closing message. Undocumented immigrants storming the border with a 5,000-person caravan of immigrants around 900 miles from Texas. Now, the president has announced he will deploy as many as 15,000 troops to meet them. So soldiers will be on the border enforcing our immigration laws, right? Wrong. Actually, they can't. That's because of an 1878 law called the Posse Comitatus Act, which blocks U.S. troops from enforcing laws on domestic soil. That means the troops can only provide logistical support to the Border Patrol. And here's another stat to put this Potemkin policy in perspective. Those 15,000 troops are more than the number of soldiers currently stationed in Iraq or Afghanistan. You know, real wars, not metaphorical ones. In fact, there are only 3 countries that have more than 15,000 troops, or permanent bases in Germany, Japan, and South Korea. Now, confronted with the idea he might be complicit in a political stunt, Secretary of Defense Mad Dog Mattis said, "We don't do stunts." But that's what his predecessor, former Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, thinks it is, calling it a, quote, political distraction of the highest magnitude. And when asked about the president's comments that troops could meet rocks with rifles, Hagel said this.
That's a wanton incitement of unnecessary violence. Not in my lifetime have I ever heard those kind of words from a president of the United States.
What's this all cost? Well, that has yet to be determined. But the Washington Post, citing the Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessment, reports it could cost up to $110 million through the middle of next month. Keep that in mind when you consider this. The Trump administration has cut some anti-domestic terror programs. For example, zeroing out the Countering Violent Extremism grant program, which was slated to distribute about $10 million to groups like the Chicago-based Life After Hate, which focuses on stopping the spread of white supremacist groups. Well, which, according to the FBI, killed more Americans between 2000 and 2016 than, quote, any other domestic extremist movement. After a 2-week period in which right-wing domestic terrorism again reared its head with pipe bombs and the deadliest anti-Semitic massacre in our nation's history at the hands of a man with an AR-15 who called refugees invaders, these kinds of cuts seem unwise in the extreme. But when impulse meets ideology, common sense usually loses out. And that's your reality check.
John, that is such an important one today. Thank you very much for giving us that history.